Today we're going to be taking a look at a couple clips from yours truly, and we are going to be looking at these through the perspective of entrances and exits. Often, when we're recording a self-tape or we're in class, we can turn our acting mechanism, machinery, on and off. You can be basically like a rock, and then all of a sudden, the gears start turning. And real people don't do that. Real people, when they're entering a new scene in their lives, they're coming from somewhere with a particular mental state. For example, you might be running late to work, and in your haste, you burnt your tongue, drinking your coffee way too fast. Or you had to run and you started sweating, and you come in and you're in this kind of hasty attitude. And when someone enters the workspace, having just, burnt their tongue and sprinted a bit, they're going to have a certain demeanor. They're going to walk in out of breath. So we want to give each of our characters a certain entrance and an exit because you have a particular attitude. That's an opportunity for you to show something about the character. So we're going to take a look at entrances and exits. This is talked about in Uta Hagen's book. A number of acting teachers talk about this, but giving your character an entrance and an exit in each and every scene. So here we're going to take a look at some examples of me giving or not giving entrances and exits to my characters. So I'm going to play the first example, and I want you to decide whether or not you think this is a real person.
He stopped believing. That's it.
So that's all I'm going to play. Wow, it's a mannequin. This guy's a stone cold statue. He's just totally static for like the first 10 seconds of the scene, and then all of a sudden, the lights start turning, the gears start turning, and I wouldn't say it's believable at all, but it's not aided by the fact that there is no entrance. This character just starts. He starts when the line starts, and before that, there's no existence whatsoever. It's just a rock. It's a statue. It's a image that's static, and we want our characters to be coming from somewhere. A character's life doesn't begin with the first word. Something has happened before the scene starts. And also, when you have an entrance, it's going to help you to get into the flow of the scene, into the mindset that you need to make the scene work. So in this scene, I'm playing the apprentice of a painter. He's my mentor, and I've just gone on a long rant about all the things I dislike about him and how he's mistreating me, and essentially I'm furious. I'm enraged at him. And at the very end of my long, almost 3-minute rant, I doubt what I've said. I'm not so sure if I'm right in my accusations. And there's a point where I falter. And that's a moment where I've chosen, as a character, as an actor, to exit the scene. And I'm going to play this here, and you'll see that this feels much more like a real person.
I don't think you'd recognize a real human being if they were standing right in front of you. Never mind.
So hopefully you've seen here that when there's an exit for your character, this could either be in a self-tape or in a scene, or anytime you're doing anything, you need an entrance and an exit because it gives so much for the character. This is going to allow the editor to cut into the next scene. It's going to keep those gears turning so we can see the character after he's finished his lines. Now, he's not so sure. Was that the right thing to say? What does the mentor think about this? How do I feel about what I just said? It's allowing us to see what happens next in the story. So now we know, the apprentice has left the scene. He's probably going to reflect about what he said. He's going to maybe come back and apologize. Maybe the relationship between the apprentice and the mentor has ended, and this is their last moment together. But imagine if I had just stopped, as in the previous scene, and after I said my last line, I just stood there like a statue. We don't know what happens next in the story. Again, the point I'm drilling home is have an entrance and an exit for each and every scene, a beginning and an ending. You're coming from somewhere, the scene takes place, and then you're going somewhere. There's a life before the scene and a life after the scene, and we need to see both. For us to believe that there's a real person on screen, we need to see that. So here's an interesting example, because in this self-tape, I have an entrance technically, but it's really only 2 or 3 seconds, and then the scene starts and takes place. The reason I'm going to call it an entrance is because you can see that there's a life before the scene starts. You can see that there's a person who's listening, who has a hammer in his hand, who, is he going to use the hammer? Is he scared for his life? What's going on? He's anticipating something. You can see that I'm thinking thoughts, and I'm active, I'm there, I'm present. There's a life in this character. Although I'm not coming onto the screen or off the screen, there's a real person doing something here. So I'll play this and you'll see that I've given context to the story for the story to unfold. So there was an entrance there. You could see I was listening. I was worried. Is someone going to come in? What do I need to do with this hammer? Am I going to have to use this? And when I hear those words, the first words of the scene, I turn and I look in shock. But you could see that there was a life before the scene started. In this scene, I'm quitting my job. I'm telling my boss, I'm done. It's over. I refuse to work here anymore. And you're going to see that I say my last line, and then I go statue mode. I go stone cold. And we'll watch and be the judge yourself of, is this a real person or not? Oh, what are your plans? It's done. And then he's a statue. Now, again, the problem here is real people don't do this. We don't just stop when we finish our lines. And if you do this on set, or if you do this in any of your projects, you're going to see that it's really hard to figure out where to cut. It's hard to cut away to another scene from here, because it's a dead stop. It's cutting from still image, no life, into a new scene. We don't have an exit or an entrance or even information for the audience to figure out what's happened next. The audience doesn't know what the character's thinking at this point, because I, as the actor, haven't done my job in telling the story. They can't tell, am I furious at my boss? Am I going to try and get him fired? Am I walking away in tears? Am I depressed? They don't know how I feel about me quitting my job, because I've just stopped the story by freezing up. So you need an entrance and an exit to each and every scene. It's very important, and it also informs what happens next. Here, I'm going to show an example of a literal entrance. What you'll see is that by starting the scene this way, there's a life here. In life, we're always arriving from somewhere. We're coming from a certain place, a mental attitude. Something has happened to us and we're arriving in a new situation with that going on. So here, a literal entrance, but you can see that it gives life to a scene rather than me just starting static in the chair.
One of your girlfriends tell you this is my quiet space.
Well, why?
I think I'm indicating a bit in this scene. It might be a bit overacted, I don't know. It's hard to judge yourself. But I will say that having an entrance here gave me something. You know, this gives a point for the editor to cut. You can tell from the story that I'm coming from somewhere. The hat tells a story. And if we play this further, it's because I'm coming from set, and this is the director, and she's basically firing me. But me walking in, it tells a story. And that's what we need. You need in your self-tapes on set We're storytellers, so everything has a beginning and an ending, and you can't just start and stop from nowhere. You have to enter the scene, if not literally with an entrance, then keep those character thoughts spinning, be alive before you start saying your words. Like with the hammer, I'm listening. You can tell something is happening and then the scene starts. It's not just start, stop. There's always something going on. We're coming and going, entrances and exits. I hope you learned something, and thank you for watching.